Pumpkin pie. It's a classic for a reason, just because it's delicious and it's really simple to make. But today on Cooking with Parker, I'm going to take it up a notch a little bit by making everything from scratch. So we're making our own pie crust, which to me is almost a non-negotiable. But you know, if you have to, you can get the store-bought thing. I'm not going to hate on that. And then we're going to roast our own pumpkins, get some nice fresh pumpkins from there. And we're going to toast our own spices and grind that. So as I said, everything from scratch. We're going to have one of the best pumpkin pies you've ever had, but still very kind of classic and traditional. And even with the evaporated milk, we're gonna make that from scratch as well. So it's gonna be a great time in the kitchen. Let's go. As in most cooking, we're gonna start by preheating our oven, so bringing that to 350. Then I'm gonna show you kind of my whole process, so there'll be a little bit of going back and forth. I did a lot of multitasking in my cooking. But starting with our pumpkin, just cut the top off of that, use a nice sharp knife, cut it in half. And then I'm gonna hit that with a little bit of canola oil, so just a kind of nice neutral oil, help kind of lubricate it, and a little bit of salt. And I'm actually gonna roast it with the seeds in there. That's gonna, first off, par cook the seeds so we can roast them off later a little bit easier. And it kind of helps keep the flesh inside so it's not gonna brown as much when I'm roasting this. Just pop this in my oven at 350, as I said, cook that for about an hour or so. Next, we're gonna work on pastry dough. So just dice up a stick of butter till it's really small little cubes, throw them in the freezer so it's nice and super cold. And then I got a cup and a quarter of flour, or 160 grams. And I put this in a food processor. Gonna make this process really easy, but you use it in a bowl with a pastry cutter if that's what you have as well. Hit that with a little bit of salt. Now while this is blending, I'm gonna slowly drop in our butter cubes. You want these to be incorporated into your dough. You get nice little kind of pockets of butter all throughout, kind of give a really nice, flavorful and crumbly pie dough. And once I got that, you know, nice kind of pea-sized structure, real fine texture actually, I'm gonna drop in 2 tablespoons of vodka. Vodka is gonna cook out, but also help give it a nice kind of crumbly and flaky pie dough. Then we're gonna add in about a quarter cup of water to slowly pour that in until our dough all starts to come together. Not fully a ball, but nice kind of holds its own shape. So we're gonna flour our surface and then drop our crust on there. Form this into a nice little disc, you know, just kind of work. You don't wanna overwork and develop too much gluten in your pie dough either. Then we're gonna grab some plastic wrap, cover this up. I'm gonna pop this in the fridge to get a nice little nap, let it rest for 30 minutes to an hour or so. So as I said, kind of doing everything at once. So next I'm gonna work on our evaporated milk. We'll just pour 2 cups of milk in a heavy bottom pan and then bring that up to a simmer. Get that on high heat, just kind of whisk it occasionally so it doesn't stick to the bottom. And then once it reaches the simmer, we're gonna turn it off. So while that's heating up, I'm gonna work on my spices as well. So toasting these is gonna release their aromatics, give them really nice brightness, but there's nothing wrong with using pre-powdered package as well. But I got a teaspoon of allspice, a teaspoon of cloves, and 1 cinnamon stick, which will give me about 2 teaspoons of that. And I forgot to do the nutmeg now, so I'll add that in later on. Wish I had toasted it too, but it worked out just fine. Anyways, just toasting these for 2 to 3 minutes, just kind of releasing their aromatics. As I said, you don't want them to burn at all. So just cook those so they're nice and fragrant, and then pour it into my mortar and pestle. If you have a spice grinder, I might recommend that, or a nice mojapete, a little bit bigger mortar and pestle. Those work fine, but just working with the tool that I had, start slowly grinding up my cinnamon, allspice, and cloves. I'm gonna just grind this till it's real nice and a really fine crumb. Took a little bit of work, started almost an arm workout, but in the end got a nice, really dust powder. And while I was doing that, the cream milk was cooking on behind me, so go back, check that. And as I said, I realized I forgot to add my nutmeg, so just grab 1 piece of that and break that up with my mortar and pestle as well. Make sure that's nice and finely ground. Now we're going back to our milk. It's reduced about 25% at this point. So, you know, start with 2 full cups, 16 ounces, right at, you know, a little between 11, 12 ounces. So if you wanted, you can use pre-evaporated milk. It works just fine, but just kind of doing this extra step. I added half a cup of sugar. Just gonna whisk that in. It's got enough heat, it's gonna dissolve, and then turn my heat off. Just kind of let that sit and ride. So get back to the pumpkin. It's been in the oven for about an hour or so. It's softened nicely up. So, you know, while I was roasting, I got to make the pie crust, make the evaporated milk, toast and grind my spices. I'm gonna let the pumpkin kind of cool off a little bit, go ahead and work on our pie crust. So, you know, as I said, it's all about multitasking. Just gonna roll this out with my rolling pin, just going back and forth, edge to edge, until we get a nice kind of 10-inch pie crust. Actually, probably roll it until about 11 inches. I'm gonna put this in a 9-inch pie crust here in a second. So I'm using my silicone mat. Makes this process really easy. Just grab the whole thing, fold it over. You can try rolling around the rolling pin as well. That's kind of the main technique, but using this nice silicone mat, it works pretty well for me. And once I got that done, I'm gonna carefully kind of lift up on the edges to drop it down in there, and then slowly and carefully press it along the side. So you don't want to tear your pie crust at all. A little bit of overhang is also exactly what we're looking for. And next I'm gonna kind of fold over the edges and just kind of crimp it a little bit with my fingertips, just kind of pinching it till it all comes together. I'm not trying to make a work of art here, just want the pie to look nice and presentable. And then I'm gonna use my fingertips to kind of create some dimples and holes in the bottom that'll help it keep it from steaming up when I go to blind bake it. I'm gonna pop it back in the fridge, give it another little nap while I work on the pumpkin puree. The skin should pull away pretty easily at this point. You let it cool down a little bit, probably a little bit easier to work with, but just getting impatient at this point. I wanted my pie, so went ahead and started working on this while it was still nice and hot. It also makes peeling a little bit easier. If it cools down completely, it'll stick to it. So grab some gloves. I'm gonna use these to make sure I get all the seeds out of our pumpkin flesh. And we're gonna make sure we set these aside and can save them for, make some nice roasted pumpkin seeds later on. So got that partially taken care of. Want to go ahead and get back to the pie crust, get that working a little bit more. So put a piece of parchment paper in there, and then I'm gonna weigh this down with some rice. If I had some pie weights, those would be preferable, but work with what I got. Dried beans also work great for this. Just want something nice and flat that covers the whole pie, goes up on the edges a little bit and weighs it down. So I'm gonna pop this in our oven that's at 400. Cook that for about 15 minutes. Go ahead and get back to our pumpkin puree or roasted pumpkin. Just grabbing my food processor. I'm gonna blend this till it's nice and super smooth. I think it took me about a minute or so even my cheap Black & Decker one does a fine job. Take a quick look at this. It's nice, creamy. The color is really bright and vibrant. A little bit better than what you get out of the cans. So the cans are Dickinson pumpkins. They're gonna be really consistent, always give you a great result, but there's something special about roasting it and doing it from scratch. I also use the pumpkins as decorations. So I went ahead and scraped the pumpkins out into a measuring cup so I knew exactly how much I got. I wanted to get close to the 15 ounces a can got. I got 13 and a half, so it works just fine. I'm gonna easily pour this out into our evaporated milk. I'm gonna use that same pot. It's cooled off at this point. I'm just gonna whisk this all together till it's nice and evenly combined. And then we're gonna take our spices, our cinnamon, allspice, nutmeg, and cloves that we work so hard at getting nice kind of fine powder. Then we're gonna add like a teaspoon of vanilla extract. So you always wanna add vanilla extract to baked goods. I don't know exactly why, I just know it makes things taste great. And we're gonna go ahead and crack and drop in 2 eggs into our kind of custard base. So we've got the evaporated milk, pumpkin, and then the eggs. Don't need to whisk those in a separate bowl or anything, just whisk them directly in there. Now we're getting back to our pie crust. So it's blind baked with our rice. Got kind of a nice kind of toast on the outside that'll help keep it from getting a soggy bottom. We're just gonna pour our custard base directly into the pie crust at this point. If you're using a pre-done pie, you don't have to do the whole blind baking thing, but this saves you a lot of work. But with the blind bake, I did decide to go ahead and make a kind of tent for my pie crust, keep the edges from getting too dark as it finishes cooking in the oven. And kind of doing this for really only my second time doing this. It took a little bit of practice, but once I got that done, I'm gonna pop this in my oven. Right now it's at 400 degrees. I'm gonna cook this for 15-20 minutes so it starts to set in the middle, and then once that's done, we're gonna drop this down to like 325 degrees. Cook it low and slow, really help the custard bake. You just wanna cook it till there's very little bit of jiggle in the middle. Go ahead and pull that out. It's at the perfect consistency. And also I'm gonna insert a knife, make sure that comes out clean. That lets you know it's done. Got a little knife mark, but it's all right. I'm gonna move this to a wire rack to cool off. And if making all this pie from scratch, gotta go ahead and make some of our own whipped cream. So some heavy cream in a bowl, probably about a cup of that. Then a little teaspoon of vanilla extract, and then a nice shot of wild turkey bourbon. That's really gonna give it some great flavor, and gotta cheat a little bit. And then I'm grabbing my hand mixer, start blending that. Forgot the powdered sugar, go back, add some of that, and then back with the hand mixer. Tried working for this for a long time, but it wasn't quite the right tool. I don't know the full science behind it, but it wasn't working. So grab out my stand mixer and with my whisk attachment, work that till I get nice kind of soft peaks. Really get a nice great whipped cream doing this. And we're gonna put a little bit of powdered sugar on top of our pie, make it nice and pretty. Cut this into 8 even pieces. At this point, I probably could have grabbed the pie server, but this is Cooking with Parker. I'm just showing you what I do, giving you a few tips. Hopefully you can take something from my videos. If you like it, look at this pie. I think that's probably worthy of a subscribe. So please subscribe, like, comment, share, all that good stuff. I really appreciate it. I'm gonna go ahead and grate some fresh nutmeg over top. Then I tried to make a nice little quenelle of my whipped cream, which is just a fancy word for like kind of that ball structure. You can do it really well with a hot spoon and butter, but worked all right for the whipped cream. All right, time for my favorite part of the video, the taste test. A little bit of the whipped cream as well. So good. Maybe a little bit of work, but I promised you it's worth it. Using that fresh pumpkin, this gives rich extra flavor. Color's a little bit different, but it's really nice. All those fresh spices. Using the milk, doesn't have the oil that your canned condensed milks have. This pumpkin pie, make it for Thanksgiving next week, or whenever you watch this video, if that's coming up. Sure to be a winner. So go ahead and make this pumpkin pie all from scratch. Let me know what you think in the comments. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.